Hey guys, welcome back to the studio. Last week, we started out our study of jazz masters by looking at some killer licks from Dexter Gordon's solo on his Rhythm Changes tune, Second Balcony Jump. This week, we're going to continue our journey through his style by looking at some licks from another tune on the same record. This time, we'll be going through his solo on a standard tune. I'll take you guys through 4 of my favorite licks from this solo, and then we'll do some analysis so that you can get a better idea of how to put these sorts of sounds together for yourself. Let's dive into Dexter Gordon's solo on Love for Sale by Cole Porter. This whole solo is a fantastic example of Dexter's iconic style. The first lick I want to show you guys comes in at the end of the A section. Like all the licks we'll learn today, it's happening over a 2/5 to the relative major of the home minor key that the tune is in. When we're transcribing, even if we don't grab a whole solo, we should try and learn things that we can immediately use as a phrase study to improve our own improvisations. Let's check out that first lick along with the recording. He starts off with his pickup on beat 4 of the previous bar. He's really just working around the F harmonic minor scale here. Still, he manages to get some reasonably strong voice leading happening over these chords. In the third bar, he plays this lick that's a great example of a melodic device that he uses a lot. It looks like he's playing down a second inversion D flat major 7 chord and then resolves up to the 5th of the A flat major. Really though, this D flat is just there to delay the resolution to the 3rd of the A flat, so it happens on the downbeat. Then, landing on the 5th to end the phrase and set up for the next one is just classic Dexter. Moving on, he plays up the chord off the 5th of this D flat 7 and then resolves it to where we expect him to. Then, he just comes down the scale to resolve to the minor 3rd of the G half diminished that comes next. What he does here is kind of strange though. He's playing what seems like G flat augmented, and then he slips into F melodic minor like this. Then he surrounds the F in that scale and comes down the chord before resolving to end the phrase like this. I think this one is a brilliant illustration of the fact that we don't always need to be using all of the bebop tricks that we know in order to play some good sounding phrases. Sometimes it's better to just play melodically, especially early on in a solo. Let's check out that lick again, a little under tempo this time. Now let's see how he handles those same chord changes the second time they come around. This next phrase happens over the same chord changes as the first one I showed you guys, but on the second time through the A section. Take a look at how differently he handles it this time around and how he starts to develop his ideas as the solo continues. He starts off strong by playing up the B flat minor 7 chord with a 16th note triplet, and then takes it to the expected resolution. Then he comes down to land on the 7th of the E flat 7 in the next bar using 1 extra half step to get there like this. He sort of resolves early to the tonic here and then plays some familiar melodic ideas that we heard in the first phrase just using the A flat major scale. On the 4th beat here, he plays this triplet that lands into this G flat, which on the surface doesn't seem that strong, but look at what he does next. He uses an idea we saw him play in the Second Balcony Jump solo and walks down the D flat 7 scale, but with this syncopated enclosure idea. His next phrase starts on the 9th of this G half diminished and comes down the C7 scale with 1 extra half step to land on the 7th on beat 3 like this. Then he walks back up the scale to slip into F melodic minor. He finishes up the phrase with a super clear callback to his first A section like this. Let's have one more listen to how that sounds a little bit slower. Next up, we'll take a look at how he handles the 2/5s that start off the bridge for the first chorus. This phrase comes right off the back of the last one, and it's got some really great examples of how melodic playing with minimal bebop conventions can still sound really inside over a 2/5. Check it out along with the recording. He starts off this 2/5 in A flat by just running up the scale and then resolves cleanly to the 3rd of the E flat 7 here like this. Then he gets down to the 7th of the E flat 7 with 1/2 step and then resolves early to the tonic like before, finishing up the phrase like this. Then he plays these slick digital patterns for A flat and D flat over C half diminished and F7 to get into the 9th of a B flat minor 7 here. Despite there not being any strong resolutions here, it still sounds pretty cool in my opinion. From the 9th of the B flat, he just comes down the E flat 7 scale with 1/2 step so that he lands on the 7th on the downbeat of the next bar. Then he gets to the 5th of the E flat 7 like this, before running down the scale to the 9th. Then he jumps up by a 4th and surrounds the tonic before playing up the A flat triad to finish the phrase. Like the first example, these phrases don't have too much bebop language in them, but they still manage to sound really cogent with the chord changes. Let's check it out one more time, a little bit under tempo. Now let's go over one more phrase from the solo. This one is also on the first half of the bridge, but it's from the second chorus. In this phrase, Dexter uses quite a bit more bebop language and continues to develop some ideas that we saw in previous phrases. Let's check out what it sounds like along with the recording. He starts this one off on the 9th of the B flat, comes down the E flat 7 scale to the 7th with 1/2 step. From here, though, he plays this digital pattern off of D flat and then surrounds the root of A flat diatonically. Then he plays what I consider a classic Dexterism by coming down the scale like this and then jumping up a 4th to the flat 3rd of the C half diminished. What he does next is my favorite part of this lick. He plays this triplet phrase with 1 extra 1/2 step to get to the 3rd of the F, and then jumps up to the flat 9 to surround the 5th of the B flat minor that comes next like this. It sounds really slick and is super reminiscent of stuff that you'd hear in a Bach piece. My money's on the fact that Dexter probably learned a lot from studying classical harmony. From the 5th of the B flat, he drops down to the root and then runs up the scale and resolves to the 3rd of E flat, kind of how we've seen him do it in previous examples. Then he plays down the E flat 7 scale with 1/2 step yet again to get to the 7th on beat 3, before doing that same move to the tonic we've seen him do several times now. He ends the phrase with this really authoritative enclosure of the tonic before dropping down to the 5th to mark the end of the phrase. This section is such a great example of Dexter's style of playing. Yeah, he tends to reuse phrases, but I think what we can learn from this is that sometimes repeating material can actually serve as a good way of developing ideas if we do it with intent. Let's check out what this one sounds like at a slower tempo now. Thanks for sticking around to the end of the video. We spend so much time as improvisers trying to learn all the different ways of adding chromatic and borrowed notes to our lines, so I thought it might be helpful to show you guys that sometimes you can use that stuff minimally to really great effect. Dexter's solos can be a great example of the fact that you don't always need to play all the hippest notes that you know in order to play a great solo. Sometimes it's best to just play super inside with a really big sound and super strong time feel. Are there any solos that taught you guys a lot about improvising or bebop language? Let me know down in the comments. I got some really great suggestions on the last video, and I love to see what you guys spend your time listening to and transcribing. While you're at it, make sure you like this video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I've got tons more stuff on the way for you guys, and I'm super excited to see this community we're building here at the studio continue to grow. If you guys want to check these licks out in depth at your own pace, you can find the PDF for this video over at my Patreon page. You'll also find the written material for every other video here on the channel, along with some really awesome monthly bonuses for patrons only. As always, a huge thank you goes out to my incredible patrons: PH, Josh, David Zuckerbrun, Patrick Caron, David Nickel, and Jazz Luminaire patron Bebop Babadi. Thank you guys so much for your support. Thank you to all of you for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.